What would that run?
All right, we got somebody on. Who are we gonna do? Justin Pritchard? Is he on?
I don't see you calling yet. No.
Maybe that.
Sure he does. We're gonna start for another 45 minutes. Public comment.
Younger, get along good with Jason.
Nobody up there right now. I'm sharing Kelly's there. Yeah, we're good. We're live.
7 bids, right?
All right, we're gonna call general government meeting to order. Couple minutes late, so 10:04 we'll say it. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Any discussion on the agenda? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
How about the minutes of January 14th?
Move to approve.
I want to die for lack of a second.
Second. I'll second it.
All right, good. Any discussion on the minutes? Not all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Carries. Anyone has any conflict of interest on any matters on the agenda, just let us know when we get to that item. Are there any public comments?
No public comments.
Okay, we'll say not. Are there any supervisors present, not seated as committee members, that would like to share some information with this committee? All right, we're going to say not. Any announcements or committee information we need to receive? At this rate, we should be done by 10:15.
Your record.
You shouldn't have said that.
All right, we have a COVID-19 budget update.
I can just tell you, so we're sitting $139,000 in unreimbursed expenses for COVID-19 right now. However, we will recapture most of those. Almost all those that are unreimbursed at this time are costs related to the vaccines and the staffing and public health, which they just received another round of funding, a significant round of funding. It does look like these additional activities, unbudgeted activities, will continue well into this year, possibly to the end, and that's kind of what the funding looks like. But as far as out-of-pocket COVID, we've managed to recapture almost all of those unbudgeted costs. Sales tax ended very strong for the year. Property tax ended strong. Most departments performed well financially with our cost cutting. So we're wrapping the year up now, but it looks like we're going to end 2020 in a good position, especially with everything we faced.
I just want to say a great job by staff and Chad, stay on top of all this stuff. Thank you.
I did hear on the way in today that there is it true that there has not been a single case of influenza?
I don't know. I can only tell you anecdotally. I can tell you anecdotally, my wife is an ICU nurse in the cities, and normally they see flu cases in the ICUs, and they're not seeing flu this year.
Supposedly there's like 1,000 of them by this time, and I don't know if it's just this area, but they said there's not a single one.
I will say the COVID cases, two things. COVID cases are dropping much like the rest of the nation. Actually, Wisconsin and Polk County are ahead of the nation in the rate that it's dropping. Last couple of weeks, we've been averaging 11, 12, which is way down from our high. We're back to early September levels. Now, I say that not to say relax, but there's an interesting phenomenon going on with the way it's dropping. Maybe the masks are helping, maybe the measures are helping, but it is a drop. So I'm courage. The second thing is every committee, I want to say thanks to our public health staff, the vaccines and the volunteers. I don't think I've dealt with any issue with this county where every comment has been positive. And I've had nothing but positive feedback from citizens, staff, and other people who have talked about how they've run the vaccine process. So hats off to them.
All right, how about a face analysis update and a bonding update?
Sure, Mr. Chair. We went out for an RFP for A&E services for the project. Here's a basic summary of those. I sent it out to 17 different firms, received 7 responses back. I broke the RFP up into 3 different projects. One was just mechanicals only, as the committee wanted information if we just did the mechanicals on the facility, what it would cost. Project 2 was if you did the remodel project after the mechanicals were completed. So if you came back after everything was done, that's it. If you did the A&E services for project 3, would be combining both project 1 and 2, doing the entire project at the same time. As you can see, KF, if you wanted to do just the mechanicals only of that project, A&E services would be $275,000 for KFI. That'd be my recommendation, if just to award that to them if we want to do the mechanicals only and move forward with the A&E services. If you looked at doing both projects, you could either award to LHB as the low bid for both projects, or bring in LHB and Dimensions as kind of an interview to see if you had a preference between the 2 firms on there. I do have a copy of all the proposals if you wanted to look at them. They're pretty generic and dry as you go through the RFP process and look at other projects they did and their staffing level on them. So I'm just looking for a recommendation, proceed forward. If you want to go mechanical only for any services, once we did the mechanical at some point later on, then we could readdress the remodel at a future date. Or if you wanted to go forward with the entire project and the remodel, you could award to LHB or interview Dimensions in that. Just looking for a recommendation to move forward with either option.
Are we at the point to move forward, or, I mean, has the board, the entire board given the okay to move forward? Or do we give that as a committee?
Well, if we did it like we did when we did the highway shop, I thought that the board asked the executive committee to do and I could be wrong.
No, I think
I think
they
it was
did,
ex-
but they had already given the go-ahead to the project. We haven't given the go-ahead, even the mechanicals, have we?
No, that's not what happened. We gave the go-ahead for an RFP, which that's what we've done here. Then what we did is
Talking the highway building or this?
the highway building. I'm just kind of rehashing how we've done it in the past, and I thought it worked good. RFP went out. We had a list of contractors or project managers, construction managers, give us this. We brought them in. We interviewed 3 or 4 of them. I believe it was maybe 4. And we interviewed them. And then we made a recommendation to the board. We didn't approve the project. We just made a recommendation. If we're going to do the project, here's who we're going to go with to do the design work and to develop the project. So to me, we're right on course. We did our RFP, which we asked staff to do. I think the recommendation needs to come from us is, I believe the whole board should be involved in this, but before it gets sent to the board, I think we should personally, my opinion is that we would bring in probably more than 2. I'd almost like to interview 3 or 4. And I would like to consider I'm fine with just doing the, thinking about, hey, let's just do the mechanicals of the building. That's what we know we need to get done. But if we don't do the architecturals up front, I think it might be short-sighted on our part. That what I'd like to know is, by tying them together, what we would get is we'd get a mechanical bid, and we'd get a bid to do, we'd have a design on what this building should look like. Because I think what ultimately may happen is that the board may say, what I'd like to know is, all right, fine, we're doing the mechanicals. Again, it's back to, if I'm going to destroy this room in the mechanical budget, that we need to redo this, then we should have the architecturals there to say, okay, mechanicals is phase one. We need to include this room in phase one because we're going to destroy this room fixing the mechanicals. And then the rooms that are just simply redoing ductwork and a couple light fixtures, then we would be able to say, well, that project could be held off for another phase, another day. So I think it'd be a good tool for us to have what the architecturals would be along with the mechanicals. So we can hopefully, and I don't know how this works out, but this would be an interview question. I'd like to ask these companies is, could you identify that in your scope of work that, okay, we're doing this, but we don't need a new boardroom, right? The board might say, we don't need the boardroom, but yeah, we're going to bust out these walls right here no matter what. Let's fix that in this phase. So I would recommend we do architecturals and engineering. I'm not saying that we would approve the whole project, but I'd certainly like to see the design and see the plans done so we can then go out to bid to phase the project. So that's my 2 cents.
This is Mike Pritchard. I'm on a telephone, and that sounds good to me.
I think the other thing would be interesting if we could gain that data to understand if that architecture, what the timeline of that architecture of value would be. So if we don't elect to do the whole project, is that architecture going to be good for 5 years, or are we going to have to redo that, spend that money a second time if we elect to do the secondary part of the project 3-4 years down the road? So I guess that would be it, but that would be part of the interview process, is to understand where that would go and would that architecture qualify for another supplier, or
Right.
anybody else? Does that stand up? But that's probably part of the interview process.
I think so. I think, yeah.
And I can set up an interview for next month's general government meeting, or unless you wanted a special meeting for it. I'd throw then SDS is the next lowest bid in there, so I'm bringing KFI is mechanical only though, if you want to hear that one. And then,
I don't think I would want to just hear mechanical only.
okay. And I can move BKV up into that same group and interview 4 that would do all 3 projects.
I think we'd have 4 and we gave each one of them a half an hour.
Yes.
My friend, you might sometimes just have to jump in. or
Want
you
to
don't
say
get-
Dan?
Am I in the way?
No, not at all.
I can move.
So I think that if we're going to interview these guys, we're going to need a special meeting, especially if we allow a half an hour for each one, because we, maybe have other bidding. Because I'm not sure we have for other business pending for next month's meeting, but maybe a special meeting. And I would be in favor of interviewing LHB Dimension and the other one Mo just mentioned. Yeah, and I'm in agreement with what Chris proposed.
All right, let's just say then that we have consensus in this committee that that's what we're gonna do. How about, do you want to try to do it we're gonna add 2 hours to our general government meeting, or do you want to call another meeting for that only? So that we know that it's gonna be a couple hours.
I personally would like to keep it the same time and maybe they could just have a little sandwiches here for us. We go through 2 of them. We could take a quick lunch break or if we need to. If we did them at 10, I don't know what else we have on general government next month, but
It might not take them a half hour either, give that much time slot.
probably will.
Yeah. Big project.
Yeah, they're gonna do a whole presentation. They're gonna get staff and showing other projects. I mean, I've sat through those before, and they seem like, you know, it maybe even half an hour ain't enough.
I would probably give them probably like 20 minutes for their presentation, 10 minutes for questions, but knowingly that it's probably gonna run over.
And you know, the other thing we did was we had a form. I remember Andrea or someone had us where we had a kind of a, we rated them then on how we, and it was nice to have that. So then we all afterwards, we were saying, hey, this was strong, this was weak, like this, or do we just talk about it? But I believe we actually had a little process in place to kind of, for us, like you rated them, right?
Yeah, right. I'll look back at the stuff we did for highway, but come up with
Sure.
some basic questions and some rating criteria so you guys can take notes as we do the presentation.
That was helpful.
I've heard 3 and I've heard 4. What did we decide?
Well, just to be courtesy to these guys, I mean, you got one at 394, one at 442, one at 445, one at 454. And then you got 2 of them over 500, one's almost 600. Cedar Corp is high. I would consider them high bid. And Wold is higher than them too. So to me, I would take the 4 that are the most competitive.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
All right, let's say that's what we're gonna do. Next month,
Okay.
we'll have 4 of them come in for presentations, and
We'll have sandwiches or something.
And then we don't have to leave. We can just kind of work right
you
through.
know, we'll add a bit to our meeting, but yeah, then we won't have to call a whole separate meeting.
Right. You okay with that, Brian?
I'm fine with that.
Just go a little bit longer.
I checked my calendar.
All right, thank you. We'll set that up.
All right. Our number 10 is kind of lengthy. I don't know what I have to read. What's the language of possible action directing the county administrator to develop a resolution for environmental services committee to consider for appropriation of the library sale funds?
So I guess the question for the committee is, the way the amendment's written from the board resolution for the lime quarry sale is following the development of a trail improvement and comprehensive plan by environmental services, then this committee would do a budgetary resolution to send to the board to fund those for 2021, any amendments, and then to assign the balance for future years. So the question for this committee is, since environmental services is already doing the trail plan, do you want to cede your authority to create the resolution to them? And they could do it together. I mean, we can talk about possible language and all, but it was just where would the resolution lie? Should they do the resolution with their trail plan, or do they need to do their trail plan? You guys do the resolution.
I would think the resolution would come from this committee, but someone has a different idea.
No, I agree with you, Russ. I do have, though, at the appropriate time, I guess I have some comments about the content of the resolution. So I understand, if I understand this correctly, there was consideration of allocating the monies from the lime quarry sale to develop the trail system. So I think that that is a good use of part of that money. I think that it's a good investment to put some money into our trail system. It is a great deal of money, and the county does have other needs. And I think to rush into committing that entire dollar amount into the trail system is a little hasty. I think we need to analyze if there are other needs of the county that could also benefit from some funding from that pot of money. That's a lot of money. that's a lot of money to stick solely into one thing, even though it's a high priority thing. And even though it definitely needs attention, and I definitely am in favor of using some of the money to do that. But like I said, there are other needs in the county. And when we get down to the recycling center, I think that, and I don't want to intermix the two here too much. We'll get to that on the agenda. But that's also a need of the county that needs some financing as well. And there may be other things that need financing that I don't know about. And I think we should take enough time to analyze and bring forward if there are other needs before we commit that entire big dollar amount to just one item.
Chair, just to add on to that, I don't think in the amendment that got passed, it wasn't a discussion or an idea. It actually passed that we do this. So I don't believe that would be appropriate to actually start now saying, you'd have to take it back to the board. You'd have to create a resolution to go back to the board to change that resolution. So that resolution, that amendment to that resolution passed. So our job, if you could, I mean, I don't know that we need to reread the whole resolution or the amendment, but
if you wanted, I've got it.
I don't think we have the authority in this committee to change what that amendment is. So to me, yeah, I know there's a lot of other things we need funding on, and that's why I think this is why I supported this amendment completely. Was it's so hard to do these big projects at budget time. We could spend 10 years developing plans, years and years developing plans. And if you don't develop a plan, you never get to a point where you actually put a budget to it. So for me to say we're going to earmark money, $1 million, to work on trails over the next 5-10 years, or it could be spent over the next couple of years. I mean, PTAG's working on some big ideas. There may be resources needing to finish the Stour Trail. There may be resources need for other trails in the county. And the county's always going to be able to, I believe, the county, we have to make, staff and people aren't just going to be able to spend the money. They're going to have to bring it back to a committee for approval of a project to go spend money out of this fund. I'm assuming, but whether environmental services the question is, should environmental services send a resolution? I think the county board made a policy decision to say we want to earmark these funds for trails, pretty broad. Personally, I think we should leave it broad because we never know what ideas are going to bubble up. So I don't know what this resolution needs to look like, but I would think staff would generate a resolution that would say, this is how we designate funds based on your policy you just passed. Staff would generate a resolution to say how these funds are put in this earmarked account, and staff would tell us how the county board would approve projects to spend the money. I think and it's for trails, right? I don't understand why we would want, what is environmental services going to add to it? Maybe you can help us with that. What do you guys think needs to be done based on the last amendment?
Well, I mean, what needs to be done, the way the amendment is written is, and I will read that part real quick. The General Government Committee is hereby directed to develop a resolution assigning the balance of the lime quarry fund following the accounting of all expenses and incomes after the closing of the sale. Aforementioned resolution shall address funding a plan developed by the Environmental Services Committee for the development, expansion, and improvement of the Polk County Trail System, with the initial intent of focus of said plan being placed upon the Stour Trail and the development of the rustic path throughout the corridor. So what needs to be done is what money is going to take in 2021 to do this needs to be amended to the 2021 budget and the remaining balance following all counting after the sale needs to be placed in the general fund and an assigned balance within the general fund. The question is, does the committee want staff to go ahead and draft, and I've got a draft ready that we've looked at that we could have next month. Do you want us to draft a number that we believe will be necessary for 2021 to amend the current budget and then place the remaining balance in the assigned fund balance? Or do you want us to wait till Environmental Services Committee has completed their trail plan and knows what each piece is going to cost and what year and all that, and then draft the budgetary amendments? But we've got to do a budgetary amendment at some point following the sale.
I would think then, the way that was read, that you would draft a resolution that would allow staff to say how much money this year you want to amend the budget for, right?
And then assign the balance.
And then give the authority to Environmental Services as they develop their plans over the next how many years, that Environmental Services would obviously, hopefully you would have it done before budget season every year, where we're deciding at budget time these funds. But if for some reason a trail project came about in February or March, why would we wait a whole year to go forward with a project that would get approved? I would think we'd want the ability as a board to go, yeah, we just voted to approve this project this year. We don't want to wait another whole year to get it into the budget. You have this fund sitting over there. Why couldn't that issue just come back to the board for approval to say, we're going to lop off another 400 grand out of this account to do this trail project? You know, and still the board would be involved. We just don't want Environmental Services to be able to decide how the money's spent. But clearly they are the ones that have to approve the plan, and then the whole board would approve the project, right?
So the committee would like a resolution next month that has a safe harbor dollar value that staff believes would be needed for 2021, with the remaining being assigned to the fund balance assigned for trails for future years, correct? You can get that resolution next month because the sale should close this month, correct?
Here's my question, Chad. What happens like a couple years from now, and this board isn't here, right? It's all new people here, and like to Fran's question is you guys, the county, there's $1 million still sitting in this fund balance or this designated fund. What's the process then? Is there a process to go in and say, you know, we don't see any new things on the horizon? Just like you did with your health savings or the insurance, you guys were putting money away. You came back and you stopped that process from happening, putting all that money away. Is there a process like Fran is saying, is that we identified something down the road that, hey, we need $500,000. Can you go in and change?
Yes. So there's a different, the health fund is restricted by law once
Yeah.
the money's in there. This is just assigned by board resolution. So I love the way the auditor put it when we had this discussion, when he and I had this discussion. He said, you want to write the rules clearly, but they can change the rules at any point in the game.
Just with the majority, or?
You know, so it would be either at budget time with a majority or a budget amendment with a 2/3.
Okay.
So
at the end of every year, the board could just change that whole thing and just use the money, or at a 2/3 in the middle of the year, they could change it then.
yes.
Okay.
I just have a comment. It was my understanding, and I could be mistaken, but I don't think I'm probably the only supervisor who has this understanding of it based upon the discussions that we had at the board meeting when we passed the resolution. It was my understanding it would come to general government and environmental services to confirm that we wanted that entire dollar amount to go to trails. That was part of the resolution process and the way that it was explained. Like I said, I could misunderstand that, but that was my understanding, and I don't think that I'm alone on that.
I think there was a discussion about that.
Yeah,
There was a discussion, because a couple supervisors had brought that up, but ultimately, the amendment that got passed doesn't say that we're discussing how much of the money, it says it's discussed to use the balance of that fund to designate it to trails, correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay, and Malia, is that your understanding of it as well?
As far as what could happen here, what I think you're asking, and this is the risk with anything like this, when this is drafted and it ultimately goes back to the county board, just like the resolution was amended on the floor, it could be amended to change the dollar amount so that, or somebody could offer an amendment to, try to earmark certain funds for something else, as long as it didn't fundamentally change the intent, like changing it to zero or taking it from, the full balance to one, a tiny part of it. But if it was just, would be considered then a friendly amendment.
Okay.
So that's the risk, I think. But I think it would be not correct for this committee at this time to start talking about other options for the money. I think that would come as an amendment.
Okay, and I'll be in touch with you about that process then. Thank you.
And actually, I think that might be the next topic, would be amendments, and that kind of thing. And process is at the next county board. How to do it, and yeah. So that's perfect timing for that.
And I'll do it in plenty of time. As long as I know what the time frame is, I won't come in and try to.
So my sense, Chad, is that we're making a recommendation to do a resolution to put the money in a designated fund. I would make a motion to do that. But I guess I don't think our committee is the one to decide what project gets funded. So that's administration, that's staff, that's environmental services, but I'm fine with my motion being that we send the resolution out, and environmental services should be aware that it's up to them to work with you to determine how much money this year you guys want to allocate.
And I've worked with Bob and Mo and Vince, so
Sure.
I think we know that. So I'll have the resolution ready for your guys' review and vote next meeting.
Next
And
month.
then it can go to the board next month, the budget amendment. And we'll be closed, so we should also know the closing balance of the Lime Quarry Fund and have a firm figure at that
Sure.
point.
All right, well, we kind of got, I don't know what we got going, but we kind of got a motion thrown out there. Do we need a motion to do this, to make it happen?
I think they'll just need, you just directing us to prepare the
We're gonna bring
resolution.
back the resolution then.
All right, so we don't need a motion.
While we draw the motion.
All right, who's reviewing the IT policies?
We're going to move that, Mr. Chair, with your permission. I'd like to move that to April, since you're going to do the A&E reviews next month, because we're not quite done with them. So we'll move that to April in your work plan, if you approve. We've had a lot going on. That's not quite ready.
All right, other discussion regarding the recycling center?
Yeah, I'll just say, after the discussions last couple of months, we have contracted with FOTH, who are experts on recycling programs. They've done a lot of analyses throughout the region, including one similar to what we're asking them to do. And they are going to, because we are coming up to a critical time in our recycling center, we've got to decide what we're going to do with it. And they're going to look at how do we improve our recycling under two conditions. One, do we keep the recycling center? And then how do we do that? What will we need to spend? What necessary changes are recommended? Or two, if we close the recycling center, how do we enhance our recycling and how much that will cost? So Mo is working with them. I met with them, and they are starting their work, and they'll be presenting to us here in a few months.
What is their name?
FOTH, F-O-T-H.
FOTH, and where are they out of?
Well, this guy is headquartered in Lake Elmo, but their headquarters is where, is it Eau Claire or Madison?
And what's the estimated cost of this study?
The recycling study, $20,000.
20 grand. And when we anticipate this is going to come back to us?
April? Anything else on the recycling center? If not, we're gonna move on to the discussion regarding the county cost resulting from.
We discussed that at executive committee, so I guess the only thing we need to do there, Mr. Chair, is we'll put that on your May agenda and your May work plan for the comprehensive report for the cost of the county.
Unless anyone is tuned into the meeting that wants more. I mean, Mike, did you catch anything from general gov or from executive? Mike may not have got that if he wasn't tuned into that.
I don't think, well, Mr. Pritchard, can you hear us, sir?
Can you hear me? I think I'm muted or.
You just,
We can hear you.
Yeah, we hear you, Mike. We had on the agenda, we're on the cost resulting from meth use in Polk County, and in the executive committee, I don't know if you were tuned into that meeting, but we had a little work plan put together on how we're gonna deal with it and a little bit of cost. Maybe just give us a brief
okay.
run.
So a quick rundown on what we spent in 2020 in three categories. Behavioral health, we spent just under 112,000. Sheriff's Office, we spent just a little over 1.5 million. The CJCC, we spent right at 125,000. Just in those three areas, we spent about 1.75 million in 2020. But in May, what we'll do as part of this work plan for the committees to review substance abuse and public safety, we'll provide a comprehensive report of resources expended and costs to the county for all areas, the courts, and all these discipline areas, give you a comprehensive assessment.
All right. We're ready for a update and a discussion regarding the concept for a potential centerpiece Forks ag complex.
Right. Just as an update, as you recall, after the presentations to the exec and the general government committee, we presented to the board. I think it was Mr. Luke who recommended, and I think the committees agreed, that we communicate this idea or this concept to local municipalities to make sure they're on board with this and are aware of it. I did send out the first letter, and again, and I also have met with the EDC board of directors and thrown the idea out to them. And the whole idea is to make sure we're not doing anything in which the public is not engaged or aware of. We don't have a specific plan yet. The other thing that I've done is contacted West Central Regional Planning Commission, and they, took this idea and actually came back to me with, if you're going to study this, here are some recommendations on how you go about engaging the public, looking at a demand analysis and those types of things. So we're in the very preliminary stages of this, but what I'm trying to do is just make sure that it's still on our radar to look into, and that anything that we do moving forward or anything that we recommend will be based on feedback from various people. So we're trying to get the word out there. I will say, besides the comments here today, earlier, we have gotten feedback from a few of the municipalities. We've gotten feedback from people in the community that have heard about it. And again, and those have all been very positive. In fact, people are asking, are you going, could this include this, or where will it be located, and that type of thing. We don't have those answers yet, right? Those are all the things that, if we decide to keep moving forward on this, will be studied in that regard. The thing I will say about the supervisor involvement, it all begins with you all. Okay, so all I got from the supervisors was direction to keep moving forward on the idea. And that's what I'm doing, just trying to get that out there and getting feedback. So I welcome Mr. Rowdy, Fran, anybody that wants to talk to me. I'm more than happy to talk about it. But know that I don't have a plan. I don't have a design yet, but I am evolving in this process. You know, for example, one question that a couple of the communities have asked is, how much space will this take? Don't know. However, I'm looking at other options, and if we do a sports and agricultural complex, it's probably going to be between the 100 and 200 acre range. So this is it'll take space. If it's going to house trails, if it's going to be a kind of a hub for our trail system, if it's going to be an agricultural complex and include things for horses, cattle, those types of things, you will need an arena. Are we going to do those? Don't know, but that's why if we continue to get people to ask questions and provide feedback, then this board, the whole board and committees will set the parameters. Because the first thing a consulting group will ask me is, tell us what you expect from us. What are you prioritizing? What's most important? And that's the decision of you all. And so it could change dramatically. But the reason we looked at this is because when we looked at our long-term goals, we said, what is it we can do that can address each of these things? What are some of the current needs? You know, we've talked about the fairgrounds and putting millions of dollars into the fairgrounds in which it is contained. It cannot grow. It needs to evolve and change. And so the question is, might this be a new fairground facility in which they could use that maybe as much as they want, but probably at least for that week of the fair, and then maybe they want to do one or two other things. So it was an idea that generates a lot of potential positives. We're trying to find out what those are. We're trying to find out what the negatives are as well. So the letter came, you know, that was my first attempt at a letter to say, are you interested? Do you want to talk? I've had a couple of the municipalities not only call me, but others have said, hey, I want to be involved in a roundtable discussion. I want to hear what this plan is. And I know some of the supervisors have heard from people as well. So please pass those things in to me. I will say this too. We mentioned the Fair Society earlier today. I did reach out to Steve Warndahl, who has reached out to the Fair Society. I want to talk to them and just throw out this concept to them, get their reaction to it. Many of the people in the Fair Society, as I understand, haven't heard about this, so this is my opportunity to communicate to them. That may be why they've delayed their CUP discussion. Don't know. I think that's all I have for this at this point. Take questions.
Yeah, and some of this may just kind of be process questions as well. So is this evolving out of what the big idea type of thing was?
Yeah.
Okay. So who decides that this is what we're going to pursue?
The board did.
Okay. And when, because I don't recall ever discussing or having on an agenda an ag center. And like I said, I don't know enough about it to be in favor of it or to be against it.
We had it at the board.
I'm certainly open-minded, you know, in listening to things. I think that by sending the letter out, you blindsided some people. I think you blindsided the Fair Board people, and I think you blindsided some of the supervisors. That's just my opinion, is all. I think that it was premature and too early. I think that it needs to go through all of our appropriate committees first before pursuing something like that. And I'm basing this also on feedback that I've heard from people. My comments are based on feedback that I've heard from people as well. I do, yeah. And I do have a concern, and this probably is also premature, but as we go into this process, I think we're going to need some direction from about what we're doing if we're competing with private enterprise and private business as we go along and as we develop this. And I think, and I don't know the answer to that question. Something else I think we need to think about, and I don't know the answer to this question either, is as a county board, do we want to get into the business of running something like this? So those are questions that come to mind for me, for all of us to think about it. And it's so early. I don't have any opinions one way or the other. I would need, of course, a lot more information. I understand it's in its infancy, and it's not my intent to come here today and shoot it down for anything like that. It's just, just what I had mentioned previously.
I guess I'll jump in here. I don't know, maybe, Fran, what you missed, but the whole discussion is that it may be a private entity that takes it over.
That takes it over.
Yeah, the idea is just a concept of what the community may need from a county support standpoint, not necessarily that it even be orchestrated by the county,
And
but that the idea out there was that there would be some demand and need in the community for something more to provide to as resources to our community.
And where was this discussed at the Polk County Board?
Yeah.
We're at the board
Right
meeting.
at the board, and we gave Vince direction to go work on it and to put it on every committee's agenda and to start working on it.
And that was part of the big idea discussion.
Yep.
Okay, now,
Bad name, I know.
I
But we
recall,
even changed the name at the board meeting that night. We said,
I mean,
okay, let's have something besides the big idea. And that's when the sports egg thing got brought up that night.
okay, and it was my understanding, and I recall that discussion as well, that was kind of a vague thing that was just kind of thrown out there.
Kind of like Vince's vague letter.
So, yeah, so
Same thing.
That's my
You're
specialty.
being vague, Administrator
I
Netherland.
wasn't expecting that it was going to be taken off and ran with. And that is feedback that I have received as well.
Sure, it's
And I'm
good feedback.
passing that along.
I take that. Mr. Rowdy gave me some great feedback directly, and I appreciate that. I've learned from that I will, I think I need to double my efforts to over communicate sometimes to make sure everyone's on board. So I that's something I'll work on. And I do know it was Jay who sat in the front desk and said, whatever you do, we got to get this out to the communities as soon as possible.
Right.
And I said, okay, I'll do that. And I've mentioned in this committee, the next step is to send a letter out.
I was surprised how quick you were on that, Administrator Netherland.
And I'm already behind, as you like to tell me, I know.
You know, one thing I'd like to throw in too is the comments I've heard, and again, from my community and my constituents that are equestrian people. And, you know, why I'm so in favor, and I think the equestrian people are so in favor of a concept like this, is like you said, the fair is locked in, right? They're locked into a small space. And we've heard comments now from the people around the fairgrounds that they're concerned about the fair as being an event center. I specifically have had calls from people in St. Croix Falls saying, hey, we're good with the fair. We moved next to a fair. We've lived with a fair. But when the fair came to us and asked us to develop these other revenue things for them, to give them the okay to build a big track and to do all these other events, what's hard for us is that how do we put all that money into a fairgrounds where the community is maybe not the best fit for an event center? And as an equestrian person, one of the things I was very disappointed, and I shared this with Supervisor Warndall, since he's one of the committee guys on that, is in their proposed CUP with the city, they don't talk about camping. They kind of leaving it off the plate, and they're leaving off the plate this idea of generators. Well, they say they want to have a rodeo. Rodeos require 100 horse trailers camping at every rodeo. Well, the fairgrounds isn't even wanting to address that with the city right now in their proposed CUP. And they haven't addressed the noise issue that 100 horse trailers bring to a neighborhood with generators running all night, keep your air conditioners running so you can sleep inside your trailer. Because when you go to rodeos, you all sleep in your trailer. So clearly, I know the fairgrounds has these goals, but the way it looks like is there's some conflict there between the community. So to me, I've had nothing but positive feedback. I had a positive call from not even a city in my district, and I've shared this with Vince. Another community called and said, we are very interested in this. Please keep us in the loop. You know, so I don't know what the next steps are, but I think so far, I completely support the administrator and what you're doing. And I would actually ask you to speed it up. Not delay it.
There you go.
You know, so that's my 2 cents worth on why we should keep moving on this. And for supervisors to say they don't know nothing about it, I mean, we all sat here that night, we all talked about it. We all said, go forward, Vince, start working on it. So I'd say keep working on it. I don't know what else we're supposed to do about it, but you know, what is the next step in your mind? You know, what are your next 2 or 3
Obviously, there'll be
things?
more education with the board, but I am putting together some things that I think will help, like pictures and examples of different facilities. I'm also I've got meetings, companies have heard about this, a couple of construction companies, and they want to come by, and I said, hey, this is a long-range project. It's we're talking 5 to 10 years, but they say, fine, just let us come and show you examples of what else we've done along these lines and some of the things we learned along the way. So it's like, great, come talk to me. From there, we'll start assessing, again, with board approval, do we want to have someone do a demand study, a feasibility study, and look at things like what should be included in this center. It may be, you know, one, we've got something for all ages in our concept. Sports, the senior civic activities. We have different types of ag and sports things, ideas. Obviously, we can't have everything. And so part of this study will be to say, what is in demand? What is it your county wants to represent and do? So that's when we come back to you guys to say, what is it that's most important to you all? And
So are you saying you want to hire a consultant?
I'm not there yet. I'm not saying that, but we will. Yes. We will hire a company that does feasibility studies.
So you would bring the board in before you hire that person? You would bring the board into that to give them?
Absolutely, because we want to know who could deliver what this board has prioritized.
Sure.
Okay, and part of their work, I suspect, would be an outreach or a survey with the general public. So it's not just the board, but rather the general public to say what are the demands and needs. They will assess resources in the region. So if we say we want to do a certain activity here, we think it's important here. If they go, well, yeah, but you've got one in Barron, one in Burnett, one in wherever, you know, they may say, you may not have the demand there. That will have some influence on it. So.
There's nothing for us to do right now.
No, we're not there yet.
Mike, you want to comment on it before we move on?
It's still there.
All right. How about our work plan? Review and update our 2021 work plan.
Yeah, as I mentioned, we will do, in May, we'll do the methamphetamine impact cost report. We'll do the IT policies in April. You're going to review the A&E next month. And we'll have the budget amendment resolution in March. And then the recycling study in April, Mo? Or should that be May?
We're pushing for April for the recycling.
The recycling study in April. It's a busy Busy 3 months.
All right, anybody have comments or anything to add to the work plan? If not, any subject matters for the next meeting? Yes, we're gonna, probably got it pretty full.
Maybe the idea would be is that we don't deal with much next month and we just deal with these RFPs, right?
Yeah, and I'll work with Lisa if that's.
And the
if that's chairman's
resolution for the
budget
budget.
amendment, and we'll try to move everything else and shift it in the plan if it makes sense. Shift it off a couple months because next month will be so busy anyway.
Well, even today with our jam-packed schedule, we're still gonna come in under an hour.
Don't hurt yourself patting yourself on the back there, Russ.
I'm not trying to force it. Anything else? Besides adjourning? We'll have to.
Pretty comfy right here, Russ. I gotta go outside once we're done.
Till 1 after.
Yeah, let's wait till 1 after.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Hi.
Good job. We'll stand adjourned at, should we say 11, just so we, is it 11? I mean, that's a lot.
I'm using Eastern Standard Time.